Welcome back. This is the seventh Sunday of Epiphany season. Choose from the words that even now sleep on your tongue, and to know that tangled among them and terribly new is a sentence that could change your life. That's from The Meadow by Marie Howe. And I've stolen and mangled Marie Howe's words for the refrain of this sermon. Even now, among the sleeping words tangled on your tongue, is a sentence terribly new, terribly new, terribly new that could change your life. There are so many words, so many. The rumble, they rumble and they toss and they fly around in our brains day and night and day. Words, 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 words. And then sometimes they form a sentence upon our tongue. If we're introverts, fewer rather than more of those sentences stay inside, or at least stay inside for longer. If we're extroverts, then we may never have to have a sentence stick on our tongue for more than a few seconds. Now, I jest at the expense of my fellow extroverts, but even now, there are words asleep on our tongues that could change our lives. I'm reminded of what I learned many decades ago in phase leadership training, that a value to be an authentic value must be publicly espoused. We must say it out loud and own it so that it is alive in the crucible of what others hear and know that we hold dear. That's when a value truly lives. Anyway, as we know, Luke, along with Matthew and Mark, were editors more than authors. They received words and word salads about and for and by Jesus that they had to then edit in ways that made sense, and sometimes made sense along a timeline of his life. They had sentences he was reported to have spoken. They had stories he supposedly told. They had stories others told about him. They had parables and similes and allegories passed on to them and their communities. And they had to take all of that and make it into what we know today as a gospel. I think this morning's reading from Luke is a bit jumbled and discombobulated, so I dared to reorganize it for him. And my version is included on the slides in this video that you saw before the sermon. I'm not going to read the whole thing out loud since it's right there in front of you, but I will read the headlines in bold. The supporting text follows each headline. So how are we to be different is really the topic. Love your enemies. Do good to those who hate us. Bless those who curse us. Pray for those who abuse us. Give to everyone who begs from us. And if anyone takes or borrows our goods, do not ask for them back. And the summary, do to others as we would have them do to us. And the theological assertion here is that God is kind to the ungrateful and to the wicked. And the promise, our reward will be great and we will be children of the Most High. So I apologize for reorganizing Luke, but I think he has something powerful here to say, and it gets a little lost in translation. Even now, among the sleeping words tangled on your tongue is a sentence terribly new, terribly new, terribly new that could change your life. There's so much in these verses for us to ponder. I mean, just the dissonance between our saying all that stuff out loud and how we actually live our lives is sermon material for a month of Sundays. So here are the sentences tangled upon my lips as I held these words once again this past week and pondered them. Love creates love. Forgiveness attracts forgiveness. Mercy spawns mercy, and generosity ignites generosity. Now we know the veracity of each of those sentences because we have lived them once or more times in our lives. We know that loving someone is an act that creates more love, either in us or the one in whom we're loving. Nothing is more painful than being forgiven, and yet it is the pain that sows its own healing power within us. Mercy and generosity the same. In other words, these are currencies in the economy of God that make for abundance. No shortages, no deprivation, no denial. These currencies, love, forgiveness, mercy, and generosity, are the substance of abundance. Each one of them is self-generating. Meanwhile, in our economy, of course, the currencies create scarcity, power, capital, ownership, competition. We know the truth of these sentences too, because we have lived them and are living them with our own lives. Even now, among the sleeping words tangled on our tongue is a sentence terribly new, terribly new, terribly new that could change our lives. In our economy, metrics has become the all-powerful criteria for everything from nonprofit funding to the efficaciousness of bombs and drones. What number is your pain today? Even the parochial report, that annual assessment form that is issued by the big church for each congregation and mission to fulfill, it now asks for an estimate of the beneficiaries, quote, weekly beneficiaries of our outreach and other things. Then it wants to know the total average impact of the church. Put a number on it. These are questions rooted in our economy, not the economy of God. How much love did love produce? How much forgiveness was given in return? How much generosity did generosity produce? How much mercy did mercy create? A number is wanted. To which the sentence that forms on my tongue is, abundance is immeasurable, and we do not get to know the measure of our influence or our impact in the economy of God. Surely the church, among all other institutions and communities, ought to know that. The only measurement that matters when it comes to the wisdom we receive from Jesus via Luke, Matthew, and Mark is the distance between what we say we value and how we live our lives. And there is always, always, always a distance. We are incapable of perfection. And so our measurement of this distance between what we profess and how we live is never to be used for reward or punishment. In the economy of God, the question isn't what didn't we do or what should we have done, but what else can we do? Is there something more? Perhaps there's something more or different than I can give or love or forgive. We measure the distance between what we say we value and how we live our lives with new words and sentences upon our tongues that lead us into more and more and more and more and more and more and more. Loving that creates more love. Forgiving that insinuates more forgiveness. Mercy that inspires other mercies. Giving that is infectious and produces more giving. Abundance that knows no ending. Even now, among the sleeping words tangled on your tongue is a sentence terribly new, terribly new, terribly new, that could change your life. Peace be with you.